Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're here with Mark, the head of Fitness for Health, a Floreo customer. And I thought we'd get started by finding out a little bit from Mark. How did you get into this business and what led you to start Fitness for Health?
Well, that's a great question, BJ. So really, Fitness for Health was really started by my own issues growing up as a child. You know, I was a child that had very severe learning disabilities. Learning was always very challenging for me in the traditional or the conventional way or sense of traditional education. And so I always found myself getting very frustrated and being upset every day after school. So obviously when I was diagnosed with the learning disability, then we had to figure out other ways to help me learn the information other than the traditional conventional ways. In addition to that, you know, my gross motor skills were very weak, and I really was challenged by that. I was challenged by having to make friends and so forth. And so my ultimate goal was, through the support of my family and friends, and you know, I was just very fortunate to just keep plugging along. I always use the analogy of, it's kind of like, you remember the old punching bags, right? They had the sand on the bottom, you punch them, they come back up. So I always thought of that. So every time I got pushed down, I just pop back up and say, you know, wipe my knees off and say, kind of push along. But my ultimate goal was, when I got through school, when I got through college, was to eventually have a place that would incorporate a lot of different types of equipment that would allow me to help other children or even adults or young adults that had a lot of similar challenges that I did, as well as other challenges they might be dealing with. So over time, you know, I started having a lot of these ideas, and I would actually find stuff on the internet and then work with the manufacturers and see if we were able to repurpose them, or sometimes see if we were able to make small changes. And many times they were very open to it, because these changes was a win-win for them from a sales perspective for their outside clients. And now I've been very fortunate and gracious that we have a whole staff that really helps me with that and comes up with different ideas, and we kind of really work together as a collaborative way to figure out other ways that we can repurpose the equipment that we have and make it work. So I just feel, you know, it's hard to believe that it's been now, well, like, I don't know, 38 plus years that I've been doing this, and when I first founded Fitness for Health. One of the reasons why I think we're here today is, you know, one of the big things that we do is we incorporate what's called exergaming. You know, people say, what's that crazy word, exergaming? It simply means that you're taking a video gaming technology and you're taking movement and you're combining them. Now, why is that important to us? Because one of the things that I have found myself personally growing up is, you know, being in PE class and, you know, the old times of, you know, doing the, what was it, American Council of Exercise or whatever, going through your physical fitness test, you know, push-ups, sit-ups, you know, whatever that is. It used to bother me because I'd always feel so defeated and such a low confidence and self-esteem. And it's like, well, how can we take someone like me or somebody else and teach them these skills that is a very good skills to have from an overall health-wise, but do it in a way where they don't feel like they're being threatened or feel like we're making them feel bad about him or herself. So I said, how can we gamify it, right? How can we take that task and make it to a game? And that really was the start of Fitness for Health, that I was constantly thinking about ways of doing it, and it goes all the way back when I first started, you know. So one of the things, you know, was, how do we get kids just moving, right? Something as simple as that. You know, people say, what do you mean? You can go out and make them run, or you can make them walk. Well, here's reality is. Reality is, that's boring, all right? It's just boring, okay? And, you know, I can give you statistics if you want. It's very low in the general population that work out, right? So I'm thinking, how can we do this? So I had this idea. You know, a long time ago, the big thing was, and they still have them out there, is these high-level athletes. We were taking these parachutes, and we were connecting athletes with these parachutes, and the idea was when they were running, they'd open up and it'd give them resistance. So their idea is to help us build up power with these athletes. But my idea was, well, wait a minute, if I connect them to the kids are gonna want it. They're gonna run all over the place because this parachute's open. Are they really thinking about, hey, you know what, this is great, you know, I'm getting my cardiovascular up? Absolutely not. They think it's entertaining to open up these parachutes. So that was kind of the start of coming up with different ways of taking tools that are out there and modifying them and make it work for me, right? Here's another example. You know, we had a young man that I saw, came to me, he was 5 years old, had an incredible amount of anxiety. You know, the last place he wanted to be was here. And, you know, and what I mean by that is, you know, when you hear the word movement, you know, all kids have this idea, preconceived idea, even before they come here. Oh my God, it's gonna be a nightmare. I don't like it. I don't wanna do it, blah, 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 right? So anyway, this young man came here, we started working with him, and I just wanted to try something on the climbing wall. Not real high, just stepping up and grabbing something. And he about had a panic attack. This young man was telling me that he's gonna fall off the wall, he's gonna crack his head open, the brains are gonna be spread out on the floor. I mean, it gets into real graphic stuff, and you know, because these are the thoughts that he's having, right? You know, so I'm like, well, I don't want to cause him to be that anxious. So then I had this great idea. The next time he came out, I went out and I bought all this fake dog poop. That's right, fake dog poop. And I plastered the wall with it. And I told this young man we had a serious accident. Look what happened. Someone let these dogs in and they messed up my wall. This child thought it was hysterical. Look at it, all this fake dog poop all over the wall. I said, yeah, but you know what the problem is? How the hell am I going to get it down? Now keep in mind, this is the same child that refused to go on the wall. I'll get them all down for you. And my point by telling you this story is, did we take any kind of magic dust, a magic wand? No. What did we do? All we did was change that perception. And that's what we're trying to do here at Fitness for Health. If we can change that perception on whatever that skill is, or whatever we're trying to achieve, and have the child feel not threatened by it, then it's a win-win situation. And that's really what we've done here. And you know, fortunately we have a team of physical therapists, we have occupational therapists, and a whole team of motor specialists. And what makes us very unique is that we're all able to work together and share ideas and collaborate on certain patients that we have together. You know, we're meeting on separate times, and then we talk about what we're doing, so we're all on the same page. And you know, we're really fortunate because one of my colleagues and a child psychiatrist read about this incredible technology called Floreo. And what was really intriguing to me was because it really met my whole philosophy is trying to game it. And Floreo's idea was, how can we get children, and these were children that were considered on the autistic spectrum, what we call ASD, all right, who maybe had the intellect, but they were really challenged in the social skills. How to say hello, how to say hi, what do you do when someone maybe looks at you the wrong way, or how do we handle that? And so what they did at Floreo, they figured out a way. What if we could superimpose that? They could wear this, and now what's called the Oculus, right? And have them go through a virtual reality and, you know, learn the way that we should react, learn different tools, how to make friends. Because I can't begin to tell you how making friends is so important. You know, I think sometimes we take it for granted as an adult, like, it's no big deal, you know, my son or daughter, you know, they just like to read a book or be off on their own. You know what, that's a bunch of hogwash. I will tell you today, it's so important that kids need to learn and have the tools that they need to be able to make those friends. And this is where Floreo comes in. And Floreo is unbelievable, and they have been very fortunate with their founder, VJ, who's just taken it to the next level. And so,
Thank you, Mark. I'm curious because when I look at Fitness for Health, it's occupational therapy meets Dave and Buster's to me, and I wonder, over the course of the last few years, as you've made this transition to being more gamified at the clinic, how have families and insurance and others viewed your brand of occupational therapy, and have you run into resistance, and have you had to develop techniques to talk about why what you're doing is of quality and that the kids are going to learn the skills they need?
right, well, that's a good question. So, really, I always say this, there are great occupational therapists out there, and there are great physical therapists out there, and people say, what really is our difference, right? And probably our big differentiator is the facility. And so one of my thoughts that I've always had is not only trying to have the ability to gamify stuff, to have everything be a big game, but if I can give a therapist, an occupational therapist, or a physical therapist, all the tools that they could ever want, right? Kind of the best analogy is, it's kind of like, do you remember, I do when I was a kid, it's not the same anymore, but walking to FAO Schwartz in New York City, there in Manhattan, you're getting your eyes go, wow, this is unbelievable. It's like every freaking toy I could ever want in my life. And I'm like, if I can have that type of emotion, that type of excitement, it allows the therapist to add all the tools that they need on that tool belt, and it allows them to be so creative. And look, I realize that a lot of the clinics and other facilities out there, the school system and so forth, they don't have those kind of budgets. And I've just been very fortunate over the time and able to build it, but I've also taken a lot of the money that we have and invested into the equipment to make sure that every single person that we see, they reach their fullest potential. And that's what we want. And so that's when people say, what's different about our occupational therapy? It makes it exciting. It makes it fun. The kids want to come back. They don't think of it like, this is OT. And I'll give you an example too, VJ, and not to be stereotyped, but it's hard. When boys turn, really around 7 or 8, a lot of times, I'm not saying it's always, but many times, having a boy go into a traditional setting of OT, in their mind, they're thinking, I don't want to be here. They think of it as like a doctor's office, too clinical. But if they come to a place like this, they're not thinking like, I'm an OT. And I tell parents all the time, you don't need to tell them you're an OT, because they're not thinking it like that. Yes, don't get me wrong, we have a traditional setting upstairs, but it's used in such a way where they say, okay, today we're going to do some things that are not going to be so fun, but I promise you, we do a great job here, then we'll go down here and we'll have a lot of fun, right? And so that's how we use it. And it's really been very welcomed by the community, and our big goal is to get out there and try to hit as many people as possible and make a difference.
To any occupational therapists watching this video who's maybe thinking about incorporating more gamification into their practice, what advice would you give them?
The advice that I would give them is kind of the same advice that I tell a parent. And I've always found occupational therapists are always very good anyway. They're usually very, very creative anyway, right? And I always say, look, take an item that we would take for granted. If it's a basketball or a kickball or a soccer ball, and say, okay, I know what that does. Now, what are 10 or 15 other things that I could do with that, right? And how can I be creative with that? And I'm very open to share with other therapists out there and come up with ways of taking an item and totally taking it to another level. And the other thing that I would tell a therapist is you'd be amazed the ability that you can use for a regular balloon, right? And yes, you can get balloons that are latex free and all that. I'm aware of that. But anyway, just to show you, there's different techniques that you could do.
Awesome. Let's stop here.